How is everyone? I hope you're fine and keeping safe. Welcome to our today's lesson. And today we are to discuss BBM 310, Business Finance. And being our first lesson, we'll start with introduction. I'm your lecturer, Dr. K.I. So when it comes now to business finance, BBM 310, one, you're expected to have covered the foundation, which we covered in our second year, which was BBM 206, Principles of Finance. Under BBM 206, we looked at various areas, which include introduction to finance, forms of business organization, sources of finance, issue of shares and bonds, and financial institutions. So basically in second year, we laid foundation for financial courses going forward. So in comes now to third year, we are anchoring our study on the foundation that we set in second year, which was Principles of Finance. So now it comes now to third year under BBM 310, Business Finance, we shall look at Introduction to Business Finance. So what is business finance? So we shall look into detail what we mean by business finance. Then on our topic 2, we shall look at time value of money, right? Time value of money. Because as time goes on by, our money loses value, or the value of the money changes depending on the various factors. We will be able to look at that. Then from there, for us to be able to get money, or for the ease of movement of money, there exists what we call the financial markets. In that case, we shall look at the financial markets where we have the finances moving. Then we usually say that for us to be able to get money, there is always a cost for it. If you want money, it's not given for free, you pay for it. In this case, we shall be looking at the cost of capital or the cost of money. When you go for a loan, for instance, how much do you pay? Whatever you pay is what you call the cost of capital. And then after that, we shall look at what we call the capital budgeting decisions. Remember, in our second year, we said the role of finance manager is to source for funds, is to get finances for an organization. Now, different sources of finance have different costs, and then at the same time, the project you invest in have different returns. So in that case, it means as a finance manager, you need to look for a middle ground, or rather you do a cost-benefit analysis on the cost of finance and the benefit you get. In that case, it means you are expected to do some capital budgeting decisions, we shall discuss in detail as we move on. Then lastly, we shall look at valuation of securities. When it comes now to financial markets, when you're buying and selling money, the money is sold in terms of securities, maybe shares, bonds, treasury bills. All those are securities, and it is important for any finance person, or rather the finance managers in the financial market, to know the value of the securities. So we shall cover that. So in that case, it in our third year, that is what is expected of us. Now, going straight to chapter 1, we start by defining business finance, which we say is a process. Business finance is a process by which financial manager or accountant provides finance for business use and when it is needed. So what you're saying here is that when it comes now to business finance, what you're saying is very simple. That for any organization to make money, for any organization to operate, for any organization to make profits, for any organization to create wealth, it needs to have money. And secondly, we say that money or finance in an organization is like blood in a human being. Without blood in a human being, the human being cannot exist anymore. Without finance in an organization, the organization cannot exist anymore. Now, when we talk about business finance, it's that aspect of getting money from whatever the sources and bringing the money to the business for the business to thrive and for the business to create wealth to the shareholders. So that is all about business finance, or when we talk about the business finance. Now, when it comes now to the scope of finance functions, we are saying that business finance is the aspect of getting money into the organization, which is done by the finance manager. But then when it comes now to the scope of finance, it gives us details on the failures, laws prayed by the finance manager or the person in charge of finance. And those broad functions are put into two categories. We have managerial functions, and then we also have what we call investment or other routine functions. So under managerial function, the first one is what we call investment of long-term asset mix decisions. What do you mean by this? That the finance manager has a responsibility of investing the finances in the organization in the best way possible, right? When the finance manager gets the money in the organization, he can invest the money in immovable properties. He can put the money in the securities like buying shares. He can put the money in fixed deposits, or he can use the money for the operational organization. So to talk about investment of long-term asset decisions is the aspect of putting the finances into the best way, into the best securities, in the best portfolio that maximizes the shareholders' wealth. And number two is what we call the financing decision, right? The financing decision. In this case, what we are saying here is that the finance manager has to make decisions on how to finance the business entity. And as I said earlier, different sources of finances have different costs, have different conditions. So the finance manager has to look at where do I get finances in the least cost and in the best or other favorable terms and conditions. That is the second role of managerial function. Then number C or number 3 is the division of earnings decision. After the organization makes profit over years, every other year, the organization can decide to distribute the earnings in terms of dividends to the shareholders, or it can decide to invest the money in the business. In that case, it means it does not pay dividends, but it invests. So that decision, whether to pay dividends or to retain the profits and pay back the profit to the organization, is another managerial function that is played by the finance manager. And number D, the last one, is the liquidity decision. In the business organization, the manager has to decide how much money do I retain in the organization as cash, right? Because when you have more money in the organization, it may not be making profit, right? You may opt to put the money in fixed deposit account. But when it comes down to organization, for example, the organization which we say they are fast moving goods, like a retail organization, it means they need more liquid cash than an organization which deals, for example, buying and selling vehicles, right? So it means the finance manager has to decide the liquidity levels of the business entity. He has to decide how much do I retain in my organization and how much maybe do I need to take the bank. So those are the 4 managerial functions. Then for the routine functions, there are 4 routine functions. The first one is provision of cash receipts and payments. If you go to any organization, you find that people pay in cash, and then the receipts at the front office, the cashier, but then the manager at the background has to do the supervision on how the cash is receipted and how the payments are made. Then number 2 of the routine function is what you call the guarding of cash balance. At the end of the day, there's cash paid in, cash paid out. So how does the finance manager make sure that the cash at the offices is well safeguarded, that the cash is not stolen, that the cash is not misappropriated? Those are the routine functions. Then number 3 is the custody and safeguarding of important documents, like the checkbook. In the organization, you find the title of ownership. If it's a big organization, they may have many vehicles with logbooks. So the manager has the responsibility of safeguarding the important documents of that organization. Lastly is record keeping. Yeah. In business, you see that there's a lot of transactions that take place. So how do we record the transactions in that organization, and how do we prepare financial reports in that organization? So those are the routine functions of the financial manager. And so those are the main functions of finance manager, which include managerial and routine functions. So when the manager is undertaking these managerial functions, they are the objectives or the goals of the business that the finance manager want to help the organization achieve. And those objectives, as indicated there, the first is profit maximization, which is usually the traditional and the cardinal objective of a business. And it is because of the following that is the business there to earn acceptable return to the owners. And number 2, the business is there to meet day-to-day operations. And the last 3 is to ensure that there is the organization is able to plow back some profits for its own survival. So businesses are there to make profit maximization. And I said the function of the manager, the managerial function of the manager, we said is financing decision, and we said he has to look for places where he can get money at a cheaper cost. Because if you get money at a very high cost, and then you want to invest this money in your organization, and the money you got in at a very expensive cost, at a very high interest rate, what means is that you may not be able to make a profit. So here, the manager has to ensure that the fund he gets to the business, he gets them or she gets them at a very favorable cost for the organization to be able to make profit. Then number 2, or the objective number 2 of the business, which you are helped to achieve by the finance manager through the failures function, is to maximize the net worth. That is the difference between the total asset and the total liabilities. And we are saying here, when it comes now to the organization, profit maximization sometimes is vague, but when it comes now to maximizing the net worth or increase the shareholders' wealth, what you are saying is that the operations of the business should ensure that the shareholders' wealth is increasing year in, year out. There is the increase of the shareholders' wealth, and this is achieved if and only if the finance manager is able to achieve the 8 functions which are categorized into the managerial and routine. That way, the business will be able to maximize the net worth. Then we have other functions, which is to maximize the welfare of the employees, because we say high-pay employees will contribute to the profitability of the organization, and this can be done through reasonable salaries, transport facilities, medical facilities, and creation facilities. This can only be achieved, or they are made possible, if from the word go, we are able to get funds to the organization which are cheap, or rather at favorable price, favorable cost, favorable interest rates, and favorable terms and conditions. That way, it means we'll be able to pay our employees well, and when the employees are paid well, they'll be happy, and of course, they are going to dedicate more energy to the organization, as it means the organization will keep on growing, and that way, the entire organization, the whole organization again will improve. Then number 4 is the interest of the customers. The company has to provide quality goods at fair prices and have honest dealing with customers. When we talk about fair prices, it is made possible because the cost of finance to the organization is fair, because the finance manager took care of the cost of finance to this organization. So if the cost of finance is on the lower side, the whole total cost of production will be on the lower side, and of course at the end of the day we'll be able to have fair prices of our products, and of course we are going to give good, or rather fair prices to our customers, to the welfare of the society. Then we have the last two, fair dealing with the suppliers. Again, if the business is making profit, you'll be able to pay our suppliers on time, and you're going to have a good working relationship with the suppliers. And finally, lastly, is the duty to the government, that you're expected to pay taxes. Imagine a business with big lorries in the road and many employees, and so it is requiring government resources, but at the end of the day, the organization is making profit. What does that mean? That if the organization is making losses, it will be paying taxes. But if the business is making profits, it is beneficial to the government, because the business will be paying taxes, and that way the government, or rather the business, is also adding value to the government. Now, when it comes now to the whole aspect of managing business organization, there arises what we call the agency theory and the agency problem. How does this arise? What we said from our earlier discussion is that when we start businesses, the owners of the businesses may not be able to run the business. And if you look, for example, take an example, Safaricom PLC. The owners of Safaricom cannot be able to run that business by a number of factors. One, there are too many. They are not experts in running the business. They may not have the technical skills. They are geographically dispersed. In that case, it means the shareholders don't have the capacity, don't have the time, don't have the capability to run the business. Right? So what do they do? They have to get people who will run the business on their behalf. The owners are the principals. On the other side, you have the agents, who are the employees, who are expected to run the business at the benefit of the principal and at the benefit of the owners. But is it that always the case? No. And that's why the arises of the agency problem. And we have a number of agency issues. We have, like the first one, we have the shareholders and the management. Then you have shareholders and creditors, shareholders and the government, shareholders and the auditors, and then you have shareholders and headquarters office and the branch. So if we start by the shareholders and the management, let us look at some of the conflicts that arise that may compromise the objective of the business of maximizing profit. Such that even if the finance manager is trying as much as he can to get the best favorable finance to the business, then if these conflicts arise, it means we may compromise the objective of the business. Some of the conflict that arises is the incentive problem. The employees would like to be paid more, but the more you pay, right? The more you pay, the less the profit you make. But you make super profit, it means you pay the employees less salaries. So you see, they go in the opposite direction. You pay more salaries, it means the profit go down, because the more you pay, the cost increases, and you remember, profit is equal to revenue minus cost. So if the cost increases, the profit will goes down. Then the second one is consumption of park sites. This is where the managers drive push vehicles, they have luxurious offices at the expense of the shareholders. Of course, the shareholders won't be happy about that, and of course it creates conflict. Then the other is different risk profile, whereby the owners and the shareholders have different risk profile. Most of the time, the employees are risk averse, because you find the owner has diversified. The owner has invested in many organizations, but the employee, his income could just be coming from that organization. So if that organization collapses, it means he has no salary. But the owner may have diversified, so that even if that company collapses, the owner will continue getting money, because they are diversified. He has invested in many places, and so whether the company collapses or not, he still safe. So you find that the risk of the employee are risk averse, whereas maybe the owners are risk takers. So that again creates a conflict. Then different evaluation horizons, management buyout, purchasing power and self-esteem goals, and creative accounting. So how do you deal with those conflicts? There are a number of ways of dealing with the conflicts. The first one is pegging or attaching managerial compensation performance. We said the first conflict is where the manager wants high salaries. In this case, what you do to avoid those conflicts, you tell the manager, fine, what you're going to do, you're going to give you maybe retainer salary of not a lot of money. But if you want more money, we are going to give you commission on percentage of the profit you make. What does that mean? That the manager has to work very hard to make sure that he makes more profit, because the more profit he makes, the more earnings he takes home. That removes the conflict of the salaries. Then number two is the threat of firing. This is where you tell the employee either they toe the line or they are fired. Then number three is what you call the risk of hostile takeover. We have seen organizations which have not been making profits being taken over by other organizations. When an organization is taken over, it means the employees may lose their job. For example, you have company A and company B. Company A has a manager, company B has a manager. If company A takes company B, what happens to the manager in company B? Because an organization cannot have two managers, it means the manager of company B loses the job. But because no employee wants to lose the job, you can give them a threat of hostile takeover. In that case, it means they have to pull up their socks, they have to work hard to make sure that they don't lose, or rather the companies are not taken over, because if that happens, they're going to lose their jobs. Then direct intervention by the shareholders can be participating in decision making in terms of board of directors, where they are the policy makers. Then managers, there can be what you call the voluntary code of conduct, and this will ensure that the managers follow what is explained of them. Then number 6 is what we call executive share option plans. In this case, what you have said is that the employee could be just concerned about their salary, whereas the shareholders are concerned about the profit. Now, when we talk about executive share options plans, what you're saying is that the managers becomes part of the shareholders. You sell shares to the managers. In that case, it means the managers are also owners of this organization. In that case, it means the higher the profit the organization makes, they are also sharing the profit because they are owners. Right? In the end of the day, you find that now the managers are aggressively driving the company to make sure that it makes more profit, because the more profit it makes, the higher the higher the return they get. They get the return in terms of the salaries, at the same time they get returns in terms of the share of dividends. And lastly is what we call incurring the agency costs. When we talk about incurring the agency costs, you're talking things like having like the auditors, the owners can engage the service of an auditor who can come and independently evaluate the operations of the organization and can report to the owners and tell them whether the business has been run effectively, whether there are malpractices, whether there's money which has been lost. And that way, the owners, even if they are not within the organization, they are able to get independent report from the auditors, and they are able to make a decision, or they are able to see whether their funds are utilized effectively, and they are able to make a decision on whether to continue with the current employees, and on whether to invest more and more funds in the organization, especially when the organization is making profit. At the same time, they get assurance from an independent arm, that's the auditor, telling them that the operations of the business are above board. So that is what I expect us to discuss today as introduction to business finance, BBM 310. And what I'll advise you is that read through what I've already given you, and we shall keep on adding more detail as we move on. Thank you very much.